Welcome to the Rural Dispatch, the podcast delivering stories from rural America. I'm your host, Allie Behrens. Headquartered in rural Iowa, I help run a nationwide livestock transportation company, and I'm here to bring you stories from the people who help shape this industry and our rural communities. Whether you're a trucker, livestock producer, or rural entrepreneur, this show is for you. Each week, we explore the realities of rural business life, from the highways to the fields and everything in between. So buckle up and let's dive into today's episode. All right, welcome back. This week's episode is geared more towards cattle feeders and ag professionals, but really anyone who's ever wanted to understand the commodities markets a little bit better. For those that don't know, I don't just do a podcast and help smoke with the trucking. My roots were actually planted at Producers Livestock 11 years ago, and while my role and how I work with Producers Livestock has evolved over the years, I am grateful that they still have room for me and value my professional opinion as it relates to business there. So my official title is Corporate Analyst, which probably makes me sound way smarter than I am, but basically I do a lot of behind-the-scenes things there. And today I am bringing you a conversation with Zach Tindall, a farmer, cattle feeder, and commodities broker for Producers Livestock. So Zach and I decided to kill two birds with one stone on our way to a meeting in Norfolk, Nebraska last week. And we talked all things just basic commodities. We did nerd out a little bit, but hopefully we broke things down in a way that's easy to understand and gives you a better understanding of the tools available for livestock producers, especially in the volatile markets that we're seeing now. And a fair warning that part of our conversation did get lost when we lost service for part of the drive, but that's life. So if there's something around options or anything else that you want more info on, shoot me a message and let me know. All right, let's get into it. You're a commodity broker for Producers Livestock.
Correct.
You started in what year?
2017. November of 2017, I started.
Okay. I mean, that was not right out of college. You worked somewhere else first, right?
Right. I went to college at SDSU in Brookings. When I was there, started working at a co-op, grain elevator, fertilizer, feed mill, stuff like that. Actually went in there to see if they knew of any farmers that needed help in the fall, and they were looking for somebody to run dryers at night and help dump corn and beans in the fall and things like that. And so I started working there, and then after college, they offered me a job to stick on as a grain originator, merchandiser, and then I continued to kind of do what I was doing before. Office wasn't really my thing at that point in life, and so did that, and then had the opportunity to move back and farm, and starting in 2017, and got hooked up with Producers, and have been there ever since.
So you farm and feed cattle with your dad?
Correct. Yeah, we're between Akron and Lamar's. Have an Akron address, but basically right in between Akron and Lamar's. Raise corn, beans, oats from time to time. We have a little bit of that this year, alfalfa, and then we raise cattle by yearlings and fatten them out. So this is part of what I love about Producers Livestock is that most of our staff is actually practicing what we preach. I mean, we've got actual hands-on experience in the industry that we're working in, which I think is a little unique to our outfit versus some others. Yeah, I think it's beneficial. I mean, you look across our lineup of employees and the amount of people that are involved in raising cattle or hogs or farming, just grain, whatever it is. We might not be there all day long, the ins and outs of feeding cattle and doing everything, but most of us are there on the nights and weekends, and obviously feel the effects of the markets and changes in the industry, whether it be, interest rates moving higher, what that does to cost of gain, corn or feedstuffs working higher, and then just overall what the feeder cattle and fat markets are. Obviously, we're somewhat in tune with that with the job we have, but when it's hitting your own pocketbook or you're having to sell cattle or buy cattle, you have a little better understanding and are involved in the market a little bit better.
Yeah, you're feeling the emotions the same as everyone else.
Yeah, and there's times where it's difficult to separate that from the job when you're, I say there's times in this career, throughout the year, throughout the business that you turn into more of a psychiatrist than a commodity broker when guys are calling and going through, COVID was a perfect example. I mean, you'd leave work every day and you're just run down because all it was people calling in wondering where the bottom was. And, you feel the joys in markets like this where it's high, but at the same time, you're, empathizing with the guys that are paying hedge losses. And, a lot of us are right there along with them. But yeah, it's obviously good to feel those same emotions. It doesn't feel great all the time, but you know what those guys are going through when they're calling in on the other end of the phone and telling you what's going on, or you can kind of have that conversation because you know what they're going through.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the emotion piece of it a little bit, actually, because I just said on the last podcast that I call in, put a hedge on, and it's out of sight, out of mind for me the rest of the time. Whereas people are probably listening to that and thinking, well, yeah, but aren't you paying margin calls and that hurts? I'm not, actually. Producers takes that out of it for me. So explain kind of how that works to people.
Yeah, so Producers is kind of known for the hedge contract or the commodity offices anyway. I guess some people would call us more of a hedge shop than anything. You got some trading offices that are more speculative driven, or there's maybe not the physical commodity behind it. 90% of what we do, or 80% of what we do, is a true hedge on livestock. So we'll put those hedges on for a feedlot, a customer, whoever it may be, and then we'll cover those margin calls. So we'll cover the initial margin up front. The market we're in right now is the market works against that short futures position or short call, long put, whatever it is. We'll pay that premium and the margin calls all the way along until the cattle or hogs are sold. And then we just collect on the physical cattle check. So when you sell the cattle to the packer or run them through the sale barn or whatever it is, we'll get the proceeds from wherever you sold them, and then take the hedge loss out or add it on in down markets, and then cut you one check back on a net basis. So it takes a little bit of the paperwork out. We're not calling you every day saying, hey, we need another 10 grand or whatever the number is to cover the margin call. So we've seen it in our own office. We've got guys that cover their own margin. And about the fourth day of a 5-day week, when you're calling them saying, hey, I need more money today, they're pretty well wore out and just ready to give up on the hedge. And I guess with our program and the view and the goal that we have of it is that that's not what we want you to do. I mean, we want you to treat it as a true hedge. There's probably times where we can get out and buy a put or reposition, things like that. But when you put it on, you were obviously happy with the price, and you were protecting profit, protecting the cattle that were in the yard. So that's how we want to treat it. And taking the emotion out, or us paying the margin and not withdrawing from your bank account every day and sending it to Chicago, it's beneficial and helps with that.
Yeah, it definitely helps with cash flow. And I mean, our company as a whole, our ideal customer model is that you use all three of our departments, which is marketing, credit, and commodities. So you're marketing your cattle through us. So we have the ability to take that hedge loss out at the end if there is one, or add it to your check if there's a profit. And if you're financing those livestock with us, obviously everyone's bank, if you're borrowing money, wants you to have some sort of protection. They want to protect their interest in that collateral. So that's it benefits if somebody's using all three of our departments. I mean, they all rely on each other.
Yeah, and I think it works a lot better for the customer, to be honest with you. If you're using one of our beef agents to sell your cattle, or one of our hog agents to sell your hogs or buy your feeders, whatever it is, we talk to those guys numerous times a day, and they might tell us, hey, we sold cattle for this customer. Do they have any hedges on? Especially in the spring, fall, when things get busy, you might get those cattle sold and something happens and all of a sudden you forget to get out of the hedge, or it's a couple hours later. When our beef guys are selling those cattle and the market's going quick, we might get a heads up, or we might just talk to them and say, hey, this person, I sold their cattle to Dakota City for this price. And, we know they've got hedges. We know we need to get a hold of them, or at least call and have that conversation. Maybe they don't need out of any hedges, but at least we're checking on them and trying to keep things straightforward and on the right path.
A lot of bankers want you to hedge your cattle, but they don't understand what all goes into that and paying margin calls. And I've heard guys say that their banker wanted them to put this level of protection on, but then it comes time to pay margin calls and they're like, well, you're out of money.
Mm-hmm. I just think it's important to be open with your banker on what your position is. I mean, if you're trading in your own account for the sole purpose of hedging and you're having to send money in every day or every other day or 3 times a week, whatever it is, and the banker says, but I don't understand why we're sending 20,000, 10,000, 40,000 to Chicago when the cattle market keeps going up. When, most bankers have a good enough understanding of how hedging works, and a lot of them probably sleep a little better at night knowing that you are a hedger and understand it, but just making sure that they're aware, I guess, is the best way to put it. We see a lot of guys, especially with the elevated prices of everything. I mean, running up against credit limits just on purchase of cattle, and then if you're hedged and that continues to work against you, just running into credit limits is kind of a big deal. And having a banker that understands that and isn't gonna tell you, hey, we need to get out of these hedges because we're out of money or we can't get any more money for you. That's kind of a problem. Obviously, most guys in this area or in cattle country in general across the U.S. are going to understand that. And sometimes the banker's the one that wants you to hedge. And I guess my only comment to that is if the banker's telling you to do something and you don't want to do it, have that conversation. Don't tell them that you did it.
Yeah.
And then turns out you don't have a hedge on, because that's how trust is broken and relationships kind of come to an end. And then there's bigger problems on the tail end of that. So, obviously it's one of those deals where nobody really wants to be told what to do as far as hedging. And when it's a banker telling you, hey, you need to do this, I would have the conversation or say why, or, see if you can buy a put or show them that you did LRP or do something. But the biggest thing is, if they're asking you to do something and you tell them that you're going to do it or that you did do it, make sure that there is some execution on your end, and because you don't want to have that conversation if the market does fall apart for whatever reason it is, that, oh yeah, I never put them on, and you're sitting across the desk tapping your foot on the floor wondering when you can leave his office.
Yeah. Well, and I will say your banker is a partner in your operation, but you know your operation better than anybody. And whether you're buying high risk cattle or, what your break even is, and you should know what your risk tolerance is. And that should probably equate a little bit to what your bank's risk tolerance is too. You should be aligned on that. And having a banker you have a good relationship with that trusts you to make solid management decisions is huge too.
Yeah, we see it a lot. I mean, obviously I talk to a lot of people in the cattle business day in, day out, and just the amount of banks that never really wanted anything to do with cattle, or were kind of working out of that coming out of COVID. And then we see these prices, and now they're really not all that enthused about loaning out a bunch of money for, $2,800 yearlings or whatever the number is, $2,200 calves is, I don't want to say it's alarming, but you definitely don't just go out and buy a bunch of cattle and then tell the banker, hey, this is what I did, because they know your credit limits, you do too. And some people say ask for forgiveness, not permission. But I think at this point in the industry or the market, with where things are, at least have the conversation or tell them what your plans are. And now is a good time for a cattle feeder. I mean, most feedlots are kind of getting down on inventory typically this time of year as you're selling the yearlings, or the yearlings are gone, and some of the big calves. And as we work through the summer, all the calves will be kind of cleaned up. But as you get ready for the fall purchases, whether that's yearlings or calves, this summer is probably a good time to go in and say, hey, what are we thinking for this fall? This is what I think the calves are going to cost. This is, I want to feed the same number as I did last year, but the calves are, $400 or $500 more than a year ago. Are we going to be able to work with that? Are you guys okay with it? What are your thoughts? And, kind of get that out of the way now, instead of when that order buyer calls you here in a month or two and say, hey, I have those calves you had last year. What are you thinking? Are we going to be able to come to a price on these? And then you're having to scramble around and try and get all your ducks in a row to get that done before they slip through your fingers.
Let's get into some of these strategies a little bit. Let's start with a straight hedge. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. It's what we do a lot of.
So a straight futures hedge, whether it's grain, livestock, cattle, hogs, feeders, corn, beans, whatever it is. If you're using just a straight futures hedge, whatever you sell that month at or sell that commodity in the in particular month is essentially what you sold that commodity for, plus or minus your basis. So, if we hedge August cattle at 210, you basically need to be happy with that price plus or minus your cash basis at the time of sale. It's the most straightforward. Obviously, for every dollar that the board works lower, you're gaining $1 on the hedge, but the cattle in the yard are technically losing $1 on the physical side, and vice versa on the way up. If we go up $1, you're going to be losing $1.100 on the board, but your cattle in the feed yard are worth more. So you're getting back to net neutral is what I like to tell people. As the market goes up, your cattle are worth more standing in the yard, but you're going to have a loss on the board, and vice versa on the way down. Your cattle aren't going to be worth what they need to be to break even, but you've got that hedge protecting that downward market.
Yeah. So a hedge, you're just essentially locking in the price that you want, but you do have to consider basis, and I think basis is what gets tricky for a lot of people.
Yeah, basis can be somewhat difficult to understand. Some people, that's the name of the game, especially yards in the South. I mean, a lot of what they're looking at is basis. They might have a whole bunch of cattle on feed and, they're only trying to make $50. And then if they can then add a little bit more with the basis, that's what they're after. Up here in the North, it's a little more of the farmer feeder. They're maybe a little less worried about basis, but it's always a gift. I always relate it back to, somebody with a big corporate job. Getting that bonus at the end of the year. It's always appreciated, but never expected. And when you get it, you're happy. And if it's what you were expecting, okay, good, I got it. And if it's not quite as good as what you're thinking, you're a little bit disappointed. But, basis, I don't want to say it's a null point or, not worth talking about if you're not a hedger, because you look at the market we're in now with the board, June board at 225 or so, and August at 211. We're selling cash cattle this week for 236 or 7. If you're not hedged, you're getting to enjoy all of the cash price at that. But if you're a hedger, you can get out of them August hedges at 210. You're probably taking a loss on them depending on where you hedged them over the course of the last 6 months. But selling the physical cattle well above where the board is helping make up a little bit of that hedge loss.
So let's talk about that. Not having any price protection in place is a position in the market too.
It is a very risky one at this point of the cattle cycle or where we're at in the market.
Well, obviously, this thing has gone a lot further than anyone thought it would. Let's talk about limits. Explain that and how it's changed over the years.
Back in 2017, the limit was always $3 for fats, $3 for hogs, $4.50 for feeders. And it seemed like we used them, I don't want to say all the time, but there were at least 2, 3, 4 days a month that we would see a limit move in cattle or hogs. Now we just don't see them. I mean, we've seen a couple down days where we touch limit, but we rarely settle there. And I think we had one back in April probably where we did settle limit lower. But with these wide limits, to your point, and the volatility, the market can move awfully quick. I mean, if you get enough people pushed on one side of the market or have the same idea and really want to move the market in one way or the other with the expanded limits, they can get it there a lot quicker and further price movement in shorter time than we could 4, 5, 6 years ago.
For the most part, do you think people should, if you're a hedger, stick with hedging? Or do you have a lot of people that bounce back and forth between options and hedges and LRP?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that they kind of get comfortable with a strategy and, it's what I've always done or what Dad always did or what Grandpa always did is kind of their mindset and they just kind of stick with it. I don't think it's a bad idea to reevaluate, and that's part of what we try and help guys with when they call in. The more we know, the more we can help somebody. If they're willing to offer up, how many head they've got, what the when the cattle are supposed to leave or hogs are supposed to leave, kind of what their break even is. We try and work through a lot of those things with guys if they're willing to, share that information. But the more we know, the better we can help. So if, they give us a break even and kind of when cattle are going to go, we can factor in seasonal basis, figure out if hedging's the best idea, just buying a put, selling a call, what strategy works best. I don't want guys to get too narrow-minded, but there are guys that say, well, hedging's worked for me. I rode it on the way down. I can ride it on the way back and vice versa. But there's always opportunities and maybe some other things to look at. And there's guys that are willing to accept that and hear it. There's other guys that don't want to hear anything about it. And I guess you get to know that as time goes on. But, staying consistent is a big thing, but also try and stay flexible and open to new ideas. Don't get awfully one-minded or, stay on the same track, because there are other things out there that maybe work a little bit better, or at least worth exploring and seeing how they compare to, a straight futures hedge. Or the biggest thing that we see in this industry is packer contracting. Guys that have always packer contracted, it's just what they did, especially in this time where there's really good basis. Trucking costs aren't at all-time highs, but they're about as high as they've ever been. There's definitely different things to look at and still have the same protection with a little bit more opportunity for price appreciation and better prices, or at least better basis, if nothing else, in this time period right now.
I think people should consider all of their options, but I also think that people should stick to what they understand the best too, because, options might be over somebody's head. And if you don't know how they work, I don't think they necessarily benefit you, even if it is the better
choice.
Better choice.
Yeah. I'm pretty firm believer, and I think most of our office and a company as a whole, make sure the customer understands what they're getting into, not necessarily what you're selling them, because I don't want to feel like we're trying to sell them on something, especially with a hedging product, but make sure they understand, what the end looks like if the market has this effect. I mean, there's a lot of hypothetical moves in there as we go through things, but explain, all right, if you hedge August at 210 today and you sell your cattle for 225 and the board's at $2, this is what your net back is. Now, if we buy a put, this is what your net cost would be. If we buy a put, sell a call, this is what it's going to be. So before we explore new options or have customers go into things that they're not necessarily comfortable with or just haven't done before, we try and make sure that they understand that. And 9 times out of 10, by the time we get done with it, they're just going to say, well, I'm going to stick with what I've always done and stay consistent. Sometimes there's, the guys that say, well, that doesn't sound too bad, and the only way to learn is to do it. And, we're playing with a lot of money to do things to learn, but at the same time, having a little protection, like on a put call spread or something like that, you get to enjoy a little bit more of the up in the market. Yeah, it's still going to be some pain in markets like this when you go to get out of those calls and zero out the put, or that expires worthless. But at the end of the day, it was a better move than just hedging. You got a little bit more up in the market. It's just important that guys understand what they're doing before they do it, because that's how problems arise. And, some hard feelings for sure definitely come out of deals like that when we get to the end and people see a different result than what they were expecting.
So we've talked mainly about protecting cattle, but what about other commodities? What about like oil? What are people's options, especially for smaller outfits?
I mean, there's a market for most everything. The problem with like oil and all of that is the contract sizes are so big. So I think just, if you're just a cash user, especially for like trucking companies with oil and things like that, just kind of stay consistent, say what you do. If you can buy fuel or book fuel through your local co-op or oil dealer or whatever it is, if it's at a price that you like and you're comfortable with, and, maybe it was just, hey, this is a dime cheaper than last year. And last year I thought we did okay. Get some booked if they allow you to do it. There are companies out there that allow you to do it. It might not be your local guy, and I'm not telling you to take business elsewhere, but, have those conversations, especially if you're using a lot of oil or a lot of product, whatever it is, fertilizer. I mean, could be the same thing. There's places that'll let you book a long ways out.
Should we talk about LRP a little bit?
Yep.
So LRP is it is insurance. How is LRP different from using options?
Well, I guess I'll preface that with, when I took this job, I wasn't taking it to be an insurance agent or sell insurance products, but it was kind of the way the industry went in 2020 there when the Farm Bill got rearranged and in LRP, the subsidy got raised. It was definitely something that we needed to at least look at. At Producers, we kind of drug our feet a little bit just because the big selling point on LRP was that you didn't have to pay for the premium till the end. Well, with our hedge contract, if somebody bought a put, I mean, we had basically been doing LRP for 30 years at that point, 35 years, just through the futures contract. So we ended up getting into it. I feel like we do a fair amount of it. We don't do hardly any on fat cattle, and that's not to say that it's wrong, but I just think the board, if you're just wanting to buy downside protection, a put option is going to be a better option, better choice.
Well, you have a little more flexibility.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you can get in and out. There's liquidity with the put option. With LRP, once you have it, you have it. You're tied to it until that specific end date. In fat cattle, it's a week. But with the puts, if you sell cattle early because the basis is really good, like right now, we can try and salvage some value on the put, and vice versa. If we need to roll that into a futures position or do something like that, we can extend some time onto the coverage.
Who do you see using it the most?
Well, I think when the government redid the LRP, it's been 5 years ago now, they kind of targeted the people that weren't getting the most benefit out of the board. So you look at like feeder cattle, lean hogs, but cow-calf guy or backgrounder probably has the most benefit to LRP compared to the board. The board, it's a 50,000 pound contract, and it reflects an 8-weight steer. So a 7 to 899 pound steer. Every day the feeder cattle index is released, 7-day moving average. That's what that board is supposed to gravitate to, and that's what it settles to. Now, if you're a cow-calf guy with, let's say, 50 head of cows, and you sell them weighing 600 pounds, you're going to be severely overhedged if you do a 50,000 pound contract. So I think the feeder cattle is probably most beneficial, and then it goes lean hogs and then live cattle. There's definitely times in the live cattle where LRP can be beneficial just because it's settled to the cash market over the last 2 years for sure, and could probably stretch that over 4 years. The basis has been so good that LRP has kind of been the worst option, if you will, or worst choice compared to a put option. But with the LRP for feeders, you can choose whether they're steers, heifers. There's a weight break at 600 pounds. You can protect unborn calves, and you can make the contract size exactly what you want. So it's no different than calling into the elevator and saying, say you haul 900 bushel of corn at a time instead of 1,000. Well, you can contract 900 bushel on a cash basis with the elevator. With the LRP, you could do one heifer at 350 pounds if you wanted to, or you can go all the way up to 12,000 on one policy, but you can customize it to what you want it to be, kind of get that end date lined up, and then choose what coverage you want. So there's definitely a lot of benefit for the feeder cattle LRP.
What if that one head died?
You have 72 hours to notify your agent, and they'll take it off your policy. So that is one question we get a lot on LRP is, what does LRP protect? Well, it's livestock risk protection. The only thing it is protecting is the risk of price. It's not protecting sickness, death, lightning, heat, anything like that. That's all going to be through a separate farm policy with your agent for the farm, just like your equipment or anything like that. But yeah, that is a question we get a lot, and it's just for price. It has nothing to do with death from whatever cause it is.
What do they even call that? No.
Act of God.
Act of God, yes. Do you think a lot of people have that type of farm insurance?
I think so. And they probably should, especially on their cattle at this point. It's probably not I know we're not promoting insurance here, but probably not a bad
No,
time.
but it is a way to manage some of your risk, because that is a huge risk. We were just talking about a couple summers ago when it got so hot and people lost a whole bunch of cattle just to the heat, or we've had it happen in blizzards, Yeah. And you can't, your hedge or your options or your LRP doesn't help if they're dead.
Right. Yeah. And it's probably a good time to visit with your insurance agent what your coverage is. I know you guys talk about it on the livestock side, and I think Smoke and you have said it's kind of the value of the load or whatever your insurance or your liability is right now. But it's probably not a bad thing to do with the cattle in the yard. 5 years ago, they were worth $1,200 when they were fat, and now they're worth $3,400 to $3,600 depending on what they weigh. So definitely keeping an eye on that. Or it's a good thing to review, I guess. It's no different than your equipment when it depreciates, or going through that at the end of the year to make sure you've got everything on the policy and the values are correct. Should probably do that same thing for the cattle as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be clear, you don't sell that type of insurance, just LRP.
We do not. Call your local guy. He'll take care of that for you. We'll take care of your LRP. I feel like we do a pretty good job. We aren't insurance salesmen, like I said before, so we're going to look at what the best option is, and if it is LRP, that's where we're going to direct you. If we think it's better and we have that conversation, you agree to go to the board or use a put, I mean, that's what we're going to go to. We have it's not our only monkey in the circus, if you will, like some of these insurance agents where, they're not going to get the business unless they sell the LRP. I mean, we can definitely push you the right way instead of just saying, yep, LRP is the only way to go. That's what I would do. If it's not, it's not. And we're going to tell you that.
Yeah. Well, and all we do is livestock. So you have a very good understanding of the livestock market versus an insurance agent who is selling farm insurance and truck insurance and LRP.
Yeah. And I'm maybe some people call me weird, but I'm kind of a junkie of the feeder cattle index. I look at it every day. Have kind of figured out the trends within that index. So on Fridays, they dump a lot of direct cattle, and most of them come out of the south, and drags the index down on a Friday. So if you have an end date that's, going to be on a Friday, or if we're looking at an end date that's going to be Thursday, if we think the market's going to be okay, maybe we wait a day and do it just because you have a better chance of a lower index the following day, and maybe put a little more money in your pocket on the LRP policy.
Okay, so let's talk best strategies for these different types of producers. Like if you are just finishing cattle, what's the best strategy? And it's probably a little bit dependent on each producer and their risk tolerance, but for that type of situation.
Yeah. Obviously it's hard to shy away from some of these prices on the board as far as a straight hedge. And now we've worked about $10 lower on a lot of these fat cattle contracts over the course of the last week, but over the course of the last 3 weeks, and it's hard to say no to just a straight futures hedge, but you can buy a put, $5 out of the money, go up and sell like a 230 call and not have a whole lot of costs there, and give you a little more room on the upside in case this market does continue to work higher. Obviously everybody has their doubts, and we've been wondering how well beef demand can hang in here, and then we see boxes now in the mid 290s or 390s, excuse me, on a choice basis. If that stays that way, maybe the Packers have some incentive to ramp the kill up again and continue to hold this cash price here. So I think giving yourself a decent floor, it's hard to stomach the price of these at the money puts, but work yourself $5, $6, $7, $8 out of the money on a put and get $15, $20 over the market and sell a call. And if you have the risk appetite, maybe sell a put underneath that's, in the 180s or something like that. Now, if the board works lower, obviously that's going to eat into you, but you do have the short put on to help capture a little bit of that down or most of the down up to a point. So, straight futures, if you're a guy that is okay with these prices and basis continues to stay strong, I see no problem with that. But, giving yourself a little bit more up in the market just with the volatility and some of the things that are working right for this market right now, I think is a good way to go, in my opinion.
Let's talk about what your options are when you buy a put. I mean, when you get out of that put, your option is to exercise it or offset it, right?
Right. Yep. So options are, there's a lot that goes into them, as far as the price and then at the end what the value is. But if your put option, the strike for your put option is above where the board settles on the last trading day of those options, you can always exercise it into a short futures position. So if we put on August put on, let's say we did that last week at 210, we get to the first Friday in August and the board's at $2, we can either get out of that put option and sell it for the difference of the board. So in this case would be $10, or you can just roll it into a short futures position, forfeit the premium you paid for it. That'll show up as a loss, but you did pay that up front, and then you're just short the board at 210. So I think it was April. Yeah, it was April when the tariffs came off. There were a lot of guys, that market was kind of in a tailspin. I think it was a Thursday, Friday deal when it came in, and those options happened to go off that day. And at the beginning of the week, most of those guys thought, these puts are going to expire worthless. Well, then they came in the money, and then we had to decide whether we just sold the put for the value that it was, or if we rolled them into short futures. Then you just have till the end of the month. It buys you another month with protection, and you're gaining or losing 1 for 1 on the board, just like any other futures position.
What about our backgrounders? What type of strategy would you say is best for a backgrounder?
Well, if you're pretty set on when you're going to sell them, buying some sort of LRP, and then at some point later on trying to either sell a put underneath or sell a call up over top. And I say, if you're pretty strict on when you're going to sell them, just based on the market. I mean, we've seen this market move up so quick and so rapid that a lot of guys are maybe selling some of these feeders 50 pounds early. Well, that's selling them a month early, and you might have LRP that kind of drags out past when you're going to sell them. So you're going to have some cost savings with the LRP compared to a feeder cattle put. If you're going to go to that end date, that's probably fine. If you're thinking, well, I might sell them early, I might feed them out, things like that, maybe we go with the put option, just so you have the flexibility and the ability to liquidate that if the time comes or the need arises.
Good. All right, let's talk about your personal risk management strategy. Do you make those management decisions as the professional expert, or does your dad do it?
Well, sometimes being a professional puts you behind the 8 ball, just because it's a little bit different sitting in front of a screen and watching the markets move so much. I mean, you see every move in the market, whereas if you're out feeding the cattle or bedding or hauling or doing that, I mean, you're not seeing every tick by tick. You're just seeing, you check it every half hour, or things like that. But yeah, I mean, we talk, Dad and I do. We usually typically buy puts, just to put some downside on. We feed all of our own feed, so I'm not saying we're not true to ourselves on corn price. We keep track of that at the local ethanol plant, and that's what we quote unquote charge ourselves every day for the corn. But just trying to have some downside protection in case the market were to fall lower. Do sell some calls from time to time over top, and we have used futures in the past. When prices get too good to be true, if you will. I mean, that might have came $20 ago in a lot of these contracts on the board. But there comes a point where, I mean, the money is almost too good if you got the cattle bought right and the break evens are in line with where they need to be. I mean, if you can make some of the profit that we're seeing on some of these cattle right now across the industry, just selling the futures and being happy with that price. And if you have to give a little bit back to the board, obviously it doesn't feel good, but it is what it is at the end of the day, and this basis has helped make up for a lot of it.
What's your favorite type of cattle to buy?
Well, typically we feed all black or black baldy yearlings. Used to feed a lot of cattle out of southern Iowa, northern Missouri. Still do feed some from there. Here in the last 3-4 years, Dad's kind of pushed the buying of cattle over to me, which is, I enjoy it. It's good and bad. I'm kind of on the phone all day and miss a few calls from time to time when I need to. But we've started buying a lot more local cattle here, Sioux Falls Regional, and then South Dakota barns, get some out of Nebraska. Work with Producers Livestock, obviously. I have an agent that has a lot of country cattle around him, calves that come out of the west in the fall, and then just backgrounders here in Iowa or southeast South Dakota, northeast Nebraska. So a lot of what we feed is not too far from home or west of here. But we do still get some cattle out of southern Iowa, and mainly yearlings, 8-9 weights, sometimes 950s if we can, but try and keep them all black. We've got more colored cattle around right now than we have for a while, but that was just a product of, cattle were tight and they were high. And I don't want to say we sacrificed on the color, but you could get cattle quite a bit cheaper if they had a handful or a dozen reds on a load or Charolais, whatever it was. So, we're not stuck to feeding all blacks, that's for sure. But we found over the years it's usually a little bit easier to get a good bid or have a little more competition from the packers when times are a little tougher to get cattle dead when they are all black and a little more uniform.
Who hauls your cattle? Because it's not us.
It is not you. We've got, you have hauled cattle for me before.
Oh, okay.
Or Smoke has. We've got a couple local guys actually have One of my dad's cousins, they have a handful of pots, live a couple miles away. They haul quite a few for us, and then some other local guys. But yeah, I mean, it's getting tougher and tougher on that front too, to try and find a truck. A lot of guys in our area, there's hog buildings everywhere, and that's kind of their, I don't want to call it a dedicated run, but
well, yeah, it's a little more predictable. They've got a schedule, and they know when they're going to be home.
Yeah, I can't call them at 2:00 on a Thursday and say head Denison and grab that load. They're sitting in line somewhere or sleeping because they've been hauling hogs all night. So yeah, I mean, anybody that's willing to haul them and does a good job, I mean, we definitely give them a chance. But we do have some local guys that we kind of give first shot to.
Well, and I think that's something with Producers too, that Producers Livestock serves a lot of farmer feeders, smaller producers that have their own truck, and most of our customers haul their own fat cattle. We might haul in feeders, but that's something too that, with our business model, you're able to haul your own or find your own truck if you've got somebody that you like to use, which is nice.
And I mean, working at Producers, obviously have a lot of connections with our beef agents and credit staff and support staff and everybody. If I need a truck, can't find one, or whatever the case is, need an order buyer in a barn, can't find one, there's definitely somebody that can help or give me a name. And just kind of amazing the amount of people you meet within the cattle industry in particular. Just through, like, this week was at the Corn Belt Classic. One of our agents was there, met a handful of guys from out west just because he knew them. Just the acquaintances you meet through the years, you never know when you might need to call them and ask for a favor or see what they can do for you. But I've enjoyed every minute of being here. The people I've met from all across the country. I mean, California to the East Coast, guys in Montana down to down south. Obviously, the bulk of our business is, what do we say, 100 miles either side of I-29.
Yep.
From, I don't know where the southern line is, but we go all the way up to Canada or close to it in the U.S. So get to see a lot of country, get to meet a lot of people from a different part of the world. I've enjoyed it, and there's hopefully meet a lot more people in the future. But I mean, that's one thing about it. If you're in the cattle industry, take advantage of, sitting in a sale barn, go talk to that guy at the cafe or that you're sitting next to in the seats, just strike up a conversation. You never know where it might lead. And it's always fun to hear other people's stories, if they're willing to share them, kind of where they came from, how they got started, what their operation looks like, and how things differ from region to region.
Well, that is one thing that I find super interesting, is just how different it looks from South Dakota to Iowa. I mean, the difference in operations and what works best in one area works completely different in another. And some of that you can maybe take notes and adopt at your own operation. But I mean, it's just interesting to see how everybody else does it. And you do business with people from all the way from California to probably somewhere on the East Coast too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're not just set in majority of Producers Livestock's business is in the Midwest, but we do branch out, especially to source some of those feeder cattle for our guys back here and whatnot. So
yeah, I remember we had a customer in Mandan. First time I went up there, it was middle of January, 1st February, something like that. I left Sioux City, went home, did chores. It was like 35 degrees. By the time I got to Fargo, it was dang near a blizzard. got to Jamestown, and I couldn't take it anymore. I found a hotel, checked in, woke up the next morning. It was 18 below. And I mean, just that short of a drive or difference in geography, what the change in weather was, and then went and rode around with a customer for the day and saw all these cattle. You just couldn't believe, all I wanted to do was ask him, why did you decide to feed here? Of all
places.
I mean, and I mean, the cattle, they got great cattle up there and they do well. And obviously they make it work, but just that big of a temperature change and not that far of a drive really, was amazing to me. You just wanted to say, why didn't you move to Nebraska or Iowa?
You ever ventured south?
Yeah. And not to say we don't have adverse weather and mud and everything else, but it was just like, of all the places, this is where you decided to build this yard.
Yeah, no kidding. What's your favorite time of year?
I like the fall. It's the busiest time of year. As far as, we got cattle coming in, typically have some cattle going out, harvest, cut silage, all that. Busy on the farm, busy in the office, but it's fun. The weather's, somewhat mild out. I enjoy, brisk mornings and 60s or 70s for a high and in the day, and then just being able to be in the field and talking to guys. They're usually pretty excited that the calves came in and getting to have those conversations with them and seeing calves get shipped, getting new cattle in, things like that. So I would say that's kind of my favorite time. It turns into a sprint. I mean, you look over it and it was a marathon, but you look back and say, where did it go? It just seems like it goes pretty quick with as busy as you are. But that's kind of what I enjoy, or my favorite part of the farm. And then I'm working at Producers, where we're busy, where you're not sitting there wondering what to do every day. And there's a lot of activity and getting to talk to customers that are kind of excited about the new year of cattle. They're getting the calves in, and, they're planning ahead into the summer when they're going to be sold, and, talking about if they like the cattle, if they're the same ones they've had for 30 years, things like that. Just having those conversations is fun to me.
Okay, I want to know how you balance it all. I mean, I think it's common for a lot of people to have an off-farm job. So a lot of people can probably relate, but does it ever feel like it's too much?
Oh, there's days. The good and the bad thing about the commodity job is I can do most everything from my phone if I need to. So it's not a walk out of the office in the afternoon or evening and shut it off and on to the next thing. I mean, the phone's always ringing, and, the markets trade through the night, the grains and equities and things like that. But, I don't know. I guess I just kind of like being busy. Nights and weekends I spend on the farm pretty much all the time. I'm obviously blessed to have a dad that really enjoys the cattle and the farming side of it. And I mean, he works his tail off getting everything done when I'm not there, and things that, take more than one person. Obviously we do together, but, he does a lot. I can't thank him enough for what he's done or what he does when I'm not there. Especially when I'm on the road for, days or a week at a time, and not around. He's making sure things are taken care of, and, he definitely enjoys the cattle side of it. I do too. I probably enjoy the row crop side of it more than he does, but yeah, I just stay busy, I guess. I don't really know anything different.
Yeah.
my hobby is work or staying busy with something. I golf a little bit, but outside of that, and, going to sporting events, things like that, I don't have a whole lot of hobbies as far as fishing or for anything like that. So,
yeah, well, that's what we say all the time. Like, our hobby is driving around and looking at cattle.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Once in a while, we'll grab a beer if it's a Saturday and we're doing it. You know, it's, you kind of live it. I mean,
mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's kind of the way my dad's always been. If there's work to do, it needs to be done. And, I guess that's kind of a good way to look at it. Or, if there's things to be done, don't be screwing around or getting other things done. Not to say there shouldn't be time for fun or other things, but, just staying busy. If it's light or you have lights on whatever you're working, I mean, there's always time to do something and try and move forward, I guess.
Do you have any siblings?
I have two sisters, both younger, so I'm the oldest of three. One sister is an athletic trainer at Northwestern College in Orange City. She went to school there, played softball, and then stayed there after. I think she might have her master's, actually.
Good for her.
I know she does. And then my youngest sister, she went to SDSU, so she was starting as I was leaving. So I was there for a year and a half after I graduated, and we were rookies together for like 2 months. But anyway, she got a degree from SDSU, and then went to Kansas City to University of Kansas Medical and got a doctorate in occupational therapy. So she just graduated there last spring, so about a year ago. And she is working down there as a occupational therapist.
Geez, so you're the real underachiever of the family.
I am the dumb one, for sure.
Least educated.
I don't
by
know.
a long shot.
I don't know if there was a whole lot of faith that I was going to get through college, just because I was never, I was a good student, I guess. It just kind of, a lot of things came to me naturally, but there were a lot of
Jesus. Just hit a bird.
But there was a lot of, I didn't enjoy reading. I didn't, I was good at math. I enjoyed that. But definitely got through school. I worked a lot while I was there at the co-op. I mean, they basically let me work as much as I wanted to and get over 40 hours at a job like that. And it starts dollaring up pretty good. So, got through school. I mean, I do have a degree. Tim, you've never asked for it, but I do have one.
That is one thing. I got this degree and nobody ever wants to see it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of wasted money and time, I think. But no. Yeah, no, I'm definitely the dumbest one of the three, I guess, if you will, or at least I don't have the
formal
accolades.
Education.
Yeah.
Well, good. Anything else?
Well, we've talked about everybody but my mom. She's a teacher. She's a teacher at Akron. Akron Westfield, teaches 6th grade, I believe it is now. This is bad of me. I don't even know how long she's been there, but she's been teaching ever since she graduated college. She went to UNI, taught at Lake Park for a little bit, and then Lake Park, Iowa, by the lakes, and then moved to Akron when her and Dad got married, and I think it was 91. So she's been there probably, what was that, 35 years, 34 years? So,
does your mom help on the farm at all?
Not a whole lot. She'll give rides and, do that kind of stuff in the fall, make sure we're well fed, run and get parts, things like that. But no, she's not sitting in a seat, doing the work or out
getting yelled at,
sort cattle or anything. I don't know. Maybe she did one time and some words got thrown around. I don't know. And that was the end of it. But no, she's not. Her mom, actually. So my grandma and grandpa live in north central Iowa. And my mom's mom, my grandma, she farmed her whole career with my grandpa. So they farmed together their whole lives, had some hired men. And that's where she's from. Obviously, Dad was born and raised here in Northwest Iowa. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe that was part of it too. She either sorting cattle didn't go well one day, or she saw what her mom had to do over in that country, picking rocks and doing stuff like that. She said, I'm going to go sit in a school for 9 months of the year and take the summer off.
Yeah, you should ask her sometime. I would love to know.
I should.
Okay,
check
so what about
time when you have me?
Yeah. What about your dad? Did his parents farm?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So we're actually where he lives, or where I grew up, where my mom and dad live now, was the farm. So we have a barn. It was an old horse barn because they used to farm with horses, of course. That barn was built in 1897.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and I just somewhat redid it a couple summers ago. So I used to work construction with an outfit out of Akron, building houses and pouring concrete. So unfortunately, I know how to put a piece of tin on a barn and pour concrete and do all that, which is a good trait to have. Can save you a lot of money on the farm. But I kind of get we should really pour some more concrete in this yard and kind of get the look like you're going to be the one spearheading it. And Dad knows how to do it. We did it long before I worked for them. But we jacked it up and kind of straightened the bottom out and put a new foundation under it and re-tinned it or put tin on. It didn't have tin at the time, but I kind of got away from the question there. But yeah, so they live on that place. My grandpa, my dad's dad, farmed. And then my dad actually went to SDSU, played football up there in the 80s, and got a degree in ag ed. So he was a ag ed teacher at Lake Park for a few years. His older brother, was the one farming, kind of took over for my grandpa, or they were farming together, and he passed away unexpectedly in 1990, and Dad moved back then and started farming in the year of 91. So that's kind of how Dad got to it. Not to say he wouldn't have come back and farmed at some point, but it was obviously sped up when he needed to come home and do that, and that's how my dad got started.
Gotcha.
And they used to have hogs, farrow to finish hogs. 98 took care of that for us. With 8-cent hogs, didn't
weather the storm there.
Yeah. So Now we're just cattle and row crops, and it's fine by me. I spent enough time in hog barns helping neighbors sort and vaccinate and load, and I don't know that would have been the life for me long term.
You don't have a lot of positive things to say about hogs.
Well,
most generally.
Yeah, it's good for the local economy in Northwest Iowa. I mean, there's a lot of barns, a lot of job opportunities. Looking back, when I moved home, I should have threw up as many hog barns as the bank would have let me, because they would have been paid off. And, now they've doubled or tripled in price, and it probably wouldn't have needed an off-farm job. Not saying I don't enjoy it, but I mean, it definitely brings a lot of stimulus to the economy and in our towns in Northwest Iowa, just with the amount of hog barns and the ability for the younger generation to move back and get started. Do you know where this place is, by the way?
Not exactly.
Or do we even need to worry about it?
Oh, shit. This is our turn.
That way?
Yep.
So we'll go around the block.
So Zach and I are driving. Well, we're in Norfolk now, Nebraska, for a meeting tonight.
And we don't know where we're going.
We don't know where we're going. We're too busy chatting to pull up the GPS. I'm surprised you got us here with no map, though.
I know my way. Highway 20 and Highway 81, that's about as far as I can
As
get.
far as you travel?
Well, Highway 20 will take you all the way across the state. I've been to Valentine enough times that I kind of see the signs for other towns. But yeah, I can get you to a town. Getting through the town is not my specialty.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. All right. Well, since we're almost here, I suppose we should wrap it up. But thanks for all your expertise.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Maybe sometime I can come down to Carroll and sit around and smoke, and we can have just have a bullshitting podcast instead of more of a business one.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
All right. Next time. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Rural Dispatch. I hope you found something valuable to take back to your own operation. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. You can keep up with me between episodes on socials at Barons & Co., or join our email list on our website to get new episodes delivered straight to your inbox every Wednesday. Until next time, keep those wheels turning. We'll talk soon.